It's when we get into the partials and where the siding contractor might take the siding off a wall and find smoke behind the siding. If they don't know to report that to me, if I'm not on site when that happens, they don't know to report that to me, they just slide over it. That could potentially be a problem.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast, a regular discussion with building industry professionals. Today I'm joined by Jeremy Hess of Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania. Jeremy's a project manager for C&Z Construction. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave feedback and ask questions there too. Jeremy, thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah, no problem.
We've known each other a long time, more than 20 years. It might be closer to 25. Do you remember how we were introduced?
Yes, actually. I was looking for a more portable miter saw stand than my new Yankee workshop version. And I emailed the email address in the inside cover of the JLC magazine, and the response I got basically boiled down to, no, we have not looked at miter saw stands recently, and would you like to? So I ended up with a dozen miter saw stands, and probably a little more work than I had bargained for, but it was fun, and it was a good educational experience. And,
Me too. I think that might have been my first assignment at JLC, honestly. And I remember the great thrill of calling up tool manufacturers and saying, would you mind sending one of these miter saw stands so we could test them? And I was jealous of you, but I didn't know at the time how much work it was to test tools.
Well, they don't send them to you assembled. Like, I had to assemble the stinking things and set them all up.
And that would be one of the more complicated things to have to put together, I'm sure.
For sure. Yes. Yeah. Some of them were like, I think the DeWalt was like basically a sawhorse. That was super easy. And then there was a Delta one that, oh my word, the number of parts with that stinking thing. But
for as long as I know, you have been in the construction business. What do you do now? And if you could give me a little work history, either before or after what you tell me what you do now, that would be great.
Yeah. So I started out working summers, mainly roofing, siding, luckily more siding than roofing. And then I went to trade school after high school, spent the next 5 years working for a family friend. He had about 4 or 5 employees, I guess, but mainly remodeling, a lot of like 1900s, early 1900s era homes. So a lot of balloon frame stuff. And then that was additions, remodels, that kind of thing. Did that for 5 years then, but I never really got to build a new house. I always wanted to build a new house from scratch. So I was offered a carpenter position with a custom home builder. Did that. We did everything from laying out the site to, in the very beginning, forming and pouring footings. Then we switched to poured walls, and those guys took care of that. But we framed it, set the windows and doors. A lot of times did the siding, trimmed them out, set the kitchens, that kind of stuff. Did that, and then they were swallowed up by the recession, so they went out of business basically at the beginning of 2010. And then I went out and couldn't sit around and collect unemployment, so I started my own thing, and then spent the next 10 years working for myself, again, remodeling additions, some carpenter for hire type stuff for like homeowners that needed hand on a project, or business, a winery, local winery that they didn't have the expertise, but they had the manpower to do the work. So I just kind of oversaw and helped with the technical stuff. And then I started a helical pile dealership in that time as well. And then late 2020, I was offered a project management position with mainly a fire restoration company, which meant taking the tool belt off and more budgeting, planning, overseeing customer interactions, that kind of stuff.
Do you miss the pounding nails part of your job?
At times I do. And I still get some of that with my involvement with the helical pile dealership still, for the metalworking side. And I do some electrical work for my friend's swimming pool business. I wire his sub panels, do the pumps and all that kind of stuff. And I'm still working on my house. So when I get the bug to get sawdust in my eyes, that's pretty quickly satisfied working on my own house.
We'll talk more about that lately because that has been a long undertaking, right?
Yeah.
The job that you do now, disaster restoration, is that how you described it?
Fire restoration.
Fire
Yeah.
restoration.
Mainly we do fire. Yeah.
What are some like the recent projects? How bad are these houses when you get them?
So typically I'm introduced in our role, our companies we call it a project manager. Some companies have a separate project manager who handles the office work, and then a project super that would oversee the site work. In my role, I'm a combination of both. So I usually meet the customer sometimes within a couple days after their fire. Um, get introduced. We're still waiting on insurance companies to the insurance company and the adjusters and stuff to settle on scope and pricing and all that kind of stuff. But I start through the process then, depending on. I mean, I've done some where it was just like a garage fire, where maybe we had to reframe a garage and repaint the interior of the house. And then I've had several. I have one going on right now where we're basically taking the house off the top of the foundation and rebuilding it to either the same footprint, or in the case of one of them, they're basically doubling the size of their house on the rebuild. Um, so I work the whole way through the process with the customer. I deal with the building side, not necessarily. I don't really deal with the contents, the personal content side of the policies, but my job is to put the house back together as quickly and as get the people home as quickly as possible with the funds that are allowed, and yeah, to help them kind of get through this low point in their life.
What are some of the idiosyncrasies of this type of construction work versus remodeling or new home building that folks might not be familiar with who listen to this show?
So the biggest thing, especially with coming from, I don't know, close to 20 years of remodeling work, is all my customers in the past have been people who have had a dream, had a vision, planned for it, saved for it, knew they were going to be inconvenienced by it, and they were excited to get the job done. All of my customers nowadays did not ask to be in the situation they were in, were not planning for it. They have other life situations going on that can complicate it and make things more difficult. It can be a very emotional time. I've found that I do a fair amount of just listening um, to people vent, to customers vent about the way the process is going, or um, the insurance carrier not getting back to them with questions or whatever. So I find I have to let people vent and not take it personally. Nice people have fires, and not so nice people have fires, and nice people can turn into not so nice people after a fire. So I just to learn not to take it personally, and my goal is just to get them back home as quickly as I can.
I'm guessing that, you don't work for an insurance company, but I'm guessing the folks who have experienced a fire and are getting their home fixed kind of see you in that light. Is that troublesome? Is that put you in a bad spot?
It can be most of the restoration companies you see out there, especially the franchises, they are preferred vendors for insurance companies. So they don't work for the insurance company necessarily, but they get their work from insurance companies. So it's in their best interests to do the scope of work that the insurance carrier says needs done and not ask questions. We are the black sheep of the industry where we are not on any insurance company's preferred vendor list. We go out and get our own work. We have a few sales guys that they are involved in the fire profession, whether they're volunteers or retired firefighters. So they have contacts. So they go out and chase the jobs. I mean, I've had times where we're pulling up to board up and secure a house as the fire apparatus is leaving. So we're usually there really quick doing the emergency service stuff, and then evaluate the job, see if it's a good fit for our company, and then going after the rebuild. But I do have to remind customers on occasion that I don't work for the insurance company, that we are a customer advocate. We are not advocating for the insurance company, which can be difficult because there's a couple of insurance companies and a couple of regional adjusters that do not like us because we fight against them all the time and they don't like it.
To effectively settle a claim, you mean to fix someone's house satisfactorily? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because there's houses, especially when you get into like balloon framed houses, if it's a fire in a basement, that smoke can push to the attic. It can push up through, especially if the walls haven't been filled with cellulose or anything. Like that smoke can push to the attic, and then as a hot July afternoon, if you go up in the attic, you'll smell smoke, and that can be very traumatic for people. Revisiting that. So, the carrier might say, you're only gutting the kitchen and the back elevation of this house, but we have to prove that there's smoke push up to the attic, and then fight to get them to pay to fix that. There's a lot of times we go ahead and do it and hope we're going to get paid for it. Not always successful, but we want to do what's right for the homeowner, not what's right for the insurance carrier.
How do you fix that problem of smoke? It's, as I understand it, it's primer. Is it more than that?
So I guess I can say brand names here, but one of the things we do is I'll have a company come in and do either soda or glass media blast to do the heavy sooted, the light char areas to get them cleaned up. Anything over a 1/4 inch of char on dimensional lumber, we have to replace the lumber itself. So floor joist studs, that kind of stuff.
Is that because it's hard to keep it from smelling, or is it because it's structurally compromised?
It can be structurally compromised, especially older homes where they're already kind of maxed out on spans with lumber. If you start blasting a 1/4 inch off the two sides, it can, you're taking a good bit off. But then after that initial structure clean, then we go through, shellac is one product that's used, oil-based shellac. That's kind of nasty though. My painter does not like using it because he has to have full respirator, full suit. That stuff's pretty nasty to breathe.
Because it's so much alcohol, right? It's just like, yes, and it flashes off so quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had good success with a Kills restoration product. It's a latex base, so it cleanup is super easy. It has real good adhesion properties, so it sticks very well to the lumber. But basically, when we're done, you walk into the house and everything's white. Is basically what ends up happening, and it seals it in. And I think I've been using that stuff for over 2 years now, and I only had one time where I had an issue, and it was because the smoke was actually between the oak floorboards, the oak subfloor of the 100-year-old house. So we had to go back to the insurance carrier and say, we can't get rid of the smell. This oak has to come up, and we have to resheet the floors. So we were successful. It took a long time to get that proven, but we were able to prove that and get that approved. So,
what about pipes and wires that get exposed to smoke? Not necessarily fire. Does that get replaced? Is it a problem? Does it vary?
Yeah. So typically, if there's smoke in the house, typically the wiring is getting replaced. Because that smoke, depending on the kind of fire, if it's I had one where it was started by an LED light string, and the kid had a lot of Legos and other plastic stuff in the bedroom. It started in the bedroom, and it was a very plastic heavy fire, so it was very oily and sooty. It was just it was that one was difficult to get clean. That was probably one of the worst ones to clean and chase that smoke smell out. But that just depends on the type of fire. But then when you get those real heavy chemical fires, that can corrode the contacts and that kind of stuff in your receptacles, your switches. If it gets in your breaker box, it can deteriorate the bus bars, that kind of stuff. So a lot of houses we are doing, if not partial rewire, a full rewire, starting with the panel. Plumbing, on the other hand, is typically only replaced if there's some kind of heat or fire damage to it. Copper piping is very rarely replaced, but you get into the PVCs and the PEX and stuff, then we're usually, if it has heat damage and evidence of heat damage, it's getting replaced.
What surprised you most about doing this work when you started?
I guess there's a couple things. The one is how insurance companies are. Like, they can make awesome commercials to make it sound like they're your buddy. But then when you actually have to deal with them, no, well, they might say they care about getting people home, but in my experience, the vast majority of my experience, they're more worried about conserving the money for their shareholders and the investors in their company than they are about getting you back home. I mean, we've had to bicker over $5,000 for them to pay an extra $5,000 for something, and they would not do it to make something right. So a lot of times we just end up doing it because it's the right thing to do. But really, like, for them not to pay $5,000, but they can pay these people to do commercials for them, like, that's just, so that was one of the bigger surprises. And then the flop from, like I said before, like how a restoration customer is different from a remodeling customer because of their circumstances. Spend a lot of time. I mean, I've been involved in a number of, I'll call them job site marital counseling episodes. Doing that. I mean, it's bad enough with remodeling work sometimes, choosing paint colors or tile or whatever. But when you have the added stress of the circumstances, so I think the types of customer interactions I've had to have were kind of surprising. I wasn't really planning on that, but it's, I just don't take that stuff personally. I try to help the people through it and get them home. So.
Are they the same subs that come and work on fire damaged houses that would do a normal remodel or build? Like, are they the same electricians that you would call for a new work?
Yeah, most of them. It is a little specialized because, especially when we get into a full gut job where we're gutting the whole house down to bare framing, tearing all the siding off, all the roofing off, putting it all back together. That's pretty straightforward. It's when we get into the partials and where the siding contractor might take the siding off a wall and find smoke behind the siding. If they don't know to report that to me, if I'm not on site when that happens, they don't know to report that to me. They just slide over it. That could potentially be a problem. But if it's somebody that's been around fire restoration work, they're going to see some of that stuff. The painter's going to know, hey, I need to use oil primer on this poly trim. We're reusing the trim. I need to use oil primer and not just throw latex paint on top of the poly trim. The trim carpenter, he likes to go in ahead of time and check rough opening sizes for doors, to make sure all the interior doors do not have to cut an inch off all the door bottoms because the head is too low. Just that, it's all that kind of stuff you got to know how to look out for. You got to look out for asbestos insulation, ACT floor tile, a lot of that kind of stuff. Some of these row homes we get in, they have 9x9 floor tile, and they have, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but the pipe wrap installation in the basements around the boiler, around the hot water pipes. We got to have a special company come in and mitigate that. So some of the subs are the same, and some are more specialized. I have a pretty good team of subcontractors I work with. I have an in-house carpenter that kind of handles my, putting up the towel bars and kind of the miscellaneous stuff that falls through the cracks. But then I have two framing subs I work with, a couple roofers, a siding guy, window and door guy. Some of them are all the same. Some of them are I cross trades. I have a painter that's really good. He pretty much gets all my work. Trim carpenter that he gets all my work, kitchens and trim and stuff. So there's, for subcontractors, I know we might touch on it there, but insurance work has a reputation among the trades. What I tell new subs is, don't just do one job with me. You're gonna have to do a few. I have to eat it on a couple jobs. You might have to eat it on a couple jobs, but I can share on the jobs where we're both going to make money on. And then when you get into it, you become more efficient. Organization is a huge part of this job, is being organized and having a plan in place and sticking with it.
You mean to do the work or to run the business, or both?
Kind of both. Like on the production side, so on the actual putting the house back together side, knowing the order of what trades need to come in when.
Just like any build, right?
Just like any build. The thing that kind of complicates it a little bit with insurance work is sometimes when we get into a house, we're only doing work in part of the house. But depending on how they ran the electrical feeds to the rooms, they might run it into one room, first bedroom, and then split the next two bedrooms off of that So if you're working on that first bedroom, the electrician has to be aware that he's got to make sure that all the rest of the receptacles in the house are still hot once he's done modifying that circuit. So having subcontractors that are well versed in remodeling is a good one, a good thing to have. If they've only done new construction, it's a little bit of a learning curve for them. And sometimes it gets frustrating. And it's also just like going from new construction to remodeling in the regular world. There's efficiencies that come from new construction that you don't get in remodeling. So if guys are set up just to do new construction, they're going to struggle in remodeling because of the efficiencies.
I'm sure those are the same subs who complain about, the amount of money that they're getting paid because it's taking longer than it would ordinarily.
Yeah. And
so
it's funny.
Go ahead.
No, I would say it's funny because some of these subs, when they look at these jobs, and I try to explain to them, look, for the electrician, figure 2 more days in on your bid, because you're probably going to need it on this job. Sometimes they'll listen, sometimes they won't. But it's funny because like the way that these insurance payouts are, these settlements are going through is they use the Xactimate program, an insurance estimating program that has tiers of pricing, a low, medium, and a high quality of, say, plumbing fixtures. So the customer might have had a $400 sink faucet in, but Xactimate might only be showing that as $180. So it's explaining that to customers that, look, I know you had this. We're trying to get the difference. We might not be able to. But then their numbers, too, are sometimes out of whack, where there's some jobs I could pay to have the house painted 4 times. But on the HVAC side, I can only put half a heating system in by the numbers that they're paying. So I have to shuffle those numbers around to make sure that that the customer's getting what they deserve and that everybody's getting compensated properly. Because I want subcontractors to answer the phone when I call them for the next job.
Yeah, and we always say we want them to make enough money to do a good job. If you have to cut corners to make a living, that is not the way to run a business, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'm betting you've learned a lot about insurance policies doing this. Are there things that you should look out for when shopping for a policy or look for?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm on the building side, but I have got some, residual spray from the insurance side, learning about policies and listening to what customers complain about with their insurance policies when they have an issue. One of the things is to make sure that on your content side, your personal content side, you have enough coverage. People as they move up in life, they buy nicer things, they add more things to their house. If they're not adjusting their policy, they could easily fall $100,000 short on their contents. That's one area that I see overlooked. Another area is just making sure. One is making sure your ALE, or your alternative living expenses policy, is good. It covers you for at least 12, if not 24 months.
So forgive me for interrupting. This is something that pays for you to live somewhere else while your house is getting okay.
Yeah, pays for an apartment or whatever. I mean, a lot of times right after the loss, like in our case, right after the loss, a lot of times we'll just take and put the customer up in a hotel for the first couple nights on our dime. Just so they don't have that stress to deal with. But after that, like, they're going to want to find an apartment or a townhouse or something nice to live in.
It's hard to live in a hotel room for any duration, right?
I mean, if you're talking a full gut, you're probably close to a year being out of your house, because the first couple months are just negotiating with the insurance company and the adjuster to make sure you're getting paid properly. And we can't start tearing stuff out of your house until we make sure that the insurance company captures it and that it's accounted for, that we have the right quality, the right quantity, because as soon as it goes in the dumpster, you can't prove that it was in the house. So so that can drag out. I've had jobs go 5 months before we can start anything on the job. So, and then if you're talking a full gut, that's 7 to 8 months usually to get it back together. Now that we're kind of coming out of 2020, 2021, and the material shortages, like, that hit us hard. We'd go from having a 2-week lead time on a vinyl window to 10 weeks, and kitchens were a nightmare and everything else, plumbing fixtures not coming in on time. So we're at least out of that, but that delayed jobs. So having ALE policy coverage for at least 12, if not 24 months is good. And the little extra money you spend for your premium is going to be worth it if you have a loss. Yeah, and then just making sure, looking at your policy, see, do you have what's your replacement look like? Like if you have one wall of siding that gets damaged, needs to be replaced, is your policy just replacing that wall, or is it replacing all your siding? Because depending on the siding you have, you might not be able to get that same color anymore. Now you're going to have a house with one wall of a different color siding. Or they only pay for one roof elevation and not the whole roof. So just kind of understanding, I'd say try your best. I've bought insurance online before. I've made the mistake. But try to find somebody local, a local agent that knows a homeowner's policy is a big thing, and making sure you're properly covered. It's just I've been on the side of saving money on policies. I've seen what the ramifications of that can be, and taking the shortcut, and it's not fun because it's already a stressful time in your life, and then to have to deal with not getting enough money to put your house back together is tough.
I really want to ask you which insurance companies you would avoid, but I'm not going to because I think that might get me sued. But I will ask, what is a good one, or what are a couple good ones that do a better job of paying claims?
So in our area, Donegal Mutual is a bigger one. They're pretty good. State Farm has been decent. Trying to think. Liberty Mutual has been all right. I'm not going to say the name, or I'm not even going to hint at what lake it's named after. But there's one insurance company.
Do you want to do a jingle?
No. But there's one particular company where the adjusters for our area just do not like us because we don't play by their rules. We don't play their game. And if they have 45 days to respond to a question or a supplement or something, they will wait till day 44 and a half. And they won't answer it correctly, so you have to resubmit and then go through the whole process again. There is one particularly that we are actually considering. If we see that name come up, we're just not even going to go after the job because it's not. I have one we just finished that we're $100,000 different from what the carrier is paying versus what it actually costs. So that's we got the customer home. Actually got them home yesterday. They're moving their stuff back in today. But we're going to be chasing money for probably a couple of years, and all that mess. So. Yeah, and all they have to do is pay what it's worth to fix. But,
changing gears, this has been fascinating. And I'm guessing folks who listen to this are probably going to have other questions I didn't think of. So if you are listening and have questions for Jeremy about insurance work, please write into the podcast email box and I'll ask him. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Tune in next week for the second half of my Pro Talk interview with project manager Jeremy Hess. Thanks very much for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Thanks for listening. Keep craft alive.